Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 18 Beta 2. iOS 18 Beta 2 is out to developers. iOS 18 Public Beta 1 should be out probably in early July. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, this particular update came in at 1.44 gigabytes on my iPhone 15 Pro Max and was about the same size on all the devices you see here. Along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 18 Beta 2, watchOS 11 Beta 2, along with macOS 15 Sequoia Beta 2, tvOS and HomePodOS Beta 2, and visionOS 2 Beta 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to Settings, then we'll go over to General, then About. As you can see, the build number is 22A5297F. This particular build does include some new features and changes, and the first thing is a modem update. So we do have a modem update, at least on the 15 Pro Max, to go along maybe with some better connectivity and new features overall. And the first new feature is something we've been waiting for a long time that Apple announced a long time ago. We actually have the option for RCS messaging. If we go into Apps and then we go down to Messages, so we go to Messages, and within Messages, we scroll down a little bit, you'll see we now have an option for RCS messaging. Now, this is only in the United States right now and may or may not be working properly. I couldn't get it to work, but it's now here and enabled, and Apple does mention that there are some bugs with it. We'll take a look at those release notes a little bit later, but at least we have this option that allows for higher quality videos and photos sent to people in different Android groups and just helps with that overall. So this is something that may take a little bit of a time to actually work. And then also we have satellite connection demo. So this is something that we can use satellite connectivity via messages via satellite, and then we can see what it's like and see what it would be like to actually use messages on here with satellite. So this is something that we're going to have in the United States at first, but something they're adding that allows us to text or message someone if we need to when we don't have any connection whatsoever. And then we've got some options for it where we can try connecting or use emergency SOS. With iOS 18 Beta 1, we gained new dark mode icons, but if we press and hold, tap on Edit, go to Customize, down here now we have an option to switch between dark mode wallpapers as well. So if we tap Edit again, Customize, you'll see we have this little icon here, and we can make the wallpaper itself dim in the background, similar to the wallpaper dimming bug, but this doesn't desaturate it like that bug did. So instead it just makes it lighter dim. You can have it on automatic, or you can have it on dark mode icons, but light mode wallpaper. So that's what I have it set to. There's also some issues with this we'll talk about a little bit later, where when you're tinting things it can cause some bugs, but it looks like they just continue to add customization to this. There's also new options within Settings. So if we go to Settings and then we go back to General, under General, if we go to AirPlay and Continuity, we now have a new option for iPhone mirroring. This goes along with the new Mac update with Beta 2 on macOS Sequoia and allows you to screen mirror on your phone and send notifications there as well. It does seem to be a bit buggy for some people, and in fact, the one Mac that I have updated to it, which is a MacBook Air 15-inch, M2, isn't even showing up here for some reason. So we have iPhone mirroring options, so they're there. It just doesn't seem to be working, at least just yet anyway. So hopefully we'll have that very soon. And we have all of the other options here as well, but again, it's not sending to that. I'll try and get that working a little bit later. In the Control Center, there's some changes. So one of them has to do with the power button. So they added the power button with Beta 1, and you could just tap on it and it would activate. Now you have to press and hold to get the slide to power off button. So a little bit of a nice change there so you don't automatically bump into it. Also, an update in the Control Center is with Shazam. If you press and hold on it, they've changed the overall buttons when you press and hold. So before you had the larger style, now you have the new style where you have your history or recognize music, and then you can go right into Shazam and go to your history of what you've listened to. So some small changes here and there, but it has been updated. Another huge update is for people in the EU. Just like Apple added the ability for sideloading earlier this year with iOS 17, they've now added it to the iPad, as that has to comply in different parts around the world as well. So if you have iOS 18 Beta 2 and iPadOS 18 Beta 2, you'll be able to sideload those app stores and use those third-party apps without going into Apple's App Store. And speaking of Apple's App Store, they've updated the icon here as well. If we go over, and you'll see here we have the App Store in dark mode now. And the same holds true in settings. If we go back and we are in dark mode with our dark icons, those all carry over to the settings app. So you'll see it here where the App Store is in dark mode, and we have the different apps that are in dark mode if they have an icon specific for that, whether that's Calculator, or if we go down to Maps, you'll see it's now featuring the dark mode icon. Something else Apple has changed this time is if we go into our account at the top of settings, and within our account in the upper right, they still have the odd icon which says Subscriber Edition, but in Beta 2 it says Subscriber iCloud. So it's a small change, it's an odd icon. I would like to see that changed overall as it matches what we have in news, but it's still a little bit odd to have in this update. Something else that's been updated in iOS 18 and iPadOS 18 is if you're using an external drive, whether that's Thunderbolt or USB-C, and we'll go ahead and plug it in, and then we'll go into the Files app. Once you're within Files and the drive shows up, press and hold on it, and then go to Erase, and you have the option to format it now. So if you want to format it in APFS or MS-DOS, you can do that, and then there's options for case sensitive and encrypted. So that's built in. Now, of course, Beta 2 is not going to have as many new changes as Beta 1, but there are subtle things all throughout. One of the things I wanted to share with you is the different splash screens. So each time you go into different apps, you may see some new ones. One of them I took when I went into Messages for the first time, and I saved it in a screenshot. And you'll see this one actually is telling you what I've mentioned in previous updates where you can use multiple languages at the same time. This one is saying type English and Espanol on the same keyboard, go to settings to change. So it's giving you a new splash screen for that. If we go into music and then we go to an artist page, so let's go to one here. Under an artist page, some people are seeing a new pop-up that actually says to start an artist station. So that's something that's a little bit new. I haven't seen it myself, but let me know if you've seen that. Within the Translate app, there's a new splash screen where it tells you about the Hindi translation availability, your favorites on all your devices, and transliteration. So that's been added along with this one here where it says improve Siri and dictation if you want to share the audio recordings. And if you have Test Flight, you'll have a new splash screen here where it says welcome to Test Flight, accept invites, test beta apps, and provide feedback. So that's something that's new as well. Something they haven't added just yet is the new Siri and Apple Intelligence. That's coming a little bit later this summer according to Apple. So if we press and hold to go into Siri, you'll see it's just the normal Siri we had before, and some people were finding ways to enable the new sort of visual overlay Siri, but that's actually been disabled in Beta 2. So once you install Beta 2, it disables that. So no Apple Intelligence just yet, but you'll be able to use all of the regular features I've mentioned already. One thing they've fixed in this update is Files. They've fixed that where you can actually save a photo again. So if we go into Files here, you can save a photo. So tap on it, go ahead and share, then you can save the image again. That's something they removed with Beta 1. It's back in Beta 2 and super helpful. And this is from my weekend video. So lots of little fixes all throughout and lots of bugs that are still remaining. If we go into the Feedback app, and you'll see the searching is much faster now. So going into that, much faster than it was before. And if we go into the latest release notes, there are probably 100 different fixes here. There's still some known issues with things such as sound recognition and sound actions. And if we scroll down, you can see tons of things that have been resolved. For example, under activity sharing, where notifications for workouts completed by a friend might show incorrect text, they've fixed that. They've fixed a lot of different issues, and they're all laid out here. I'll link to this in the description as it's public facing as well, and you can see things from previews being resolved. There's resolved issues with background developer issues. As I mentioned earlier, Apple actually said there's a known issue with RCS messaging where it says group chat will downgrade to SMS even if RCS is still registered. And you'll see the workaround is basically close the messaging app and relaunch it. So far, I haven't gotten it to work, but it's a known issue that they're still working on. StoreKit storage. It says the available storage listed in Settings General About might be incorrect. The correct available storage for iPhones can be viewed in Settings General and iPhone Storage. So if you've been wondering about that storage bug, this should fix that as well, and tons of other things that have fixed. If we go back to iPhone Storage, give it a second here, we'll wait for it to load, and if we go down, your system data should be regular again. It was just a bug in the first beta. This should be much better. Screen time, though, still isn't working for some, and there's odd bugs with editing tinting of icons. So if we press and hold on the home screen here, and then we go to customize, and then we go to tint the icons, we can tint those however we want. However, these look a little bit different this time. Maybe they've refined them. and sometimes we go home. Sometimes they don't hold properly, and then they just stop working or the screen goes blank. So there's definitely some odd bugs here and there, but at least it seems to be working a little bit better this time around. And you'll see it's not working properly just yet. If we go to automatic, large, small, there we go. It changed back and then they sort of disappear. So definitely some odd bugs, but they'll fix this in future updates, but something that's just visually there that's a little bit annoying. Of course, we do expect some security updates. We won't know about those until they release, but performance overall actually seems pretty good. Scrolling through different things, going to ProMotion, scrolling, just going into maybe Control Center, swiping up, pressing and holding, things seem to be much faster and more fluid this time around. So definitely a fix there, and I'm sure that will improve over time. For those of you concerned about the heat of the device, well, surprisingly, even after installing this, it was barely warm. It's barely warm right now. I do expect it to get hotter as you're processing a lot more information, but it seems much, much better right now and should really be a lot cooler than it was with Beta 1. When it comes to battery life, though, battery life actually was pretty terrible for me up until yesterday. Then all of a sudden it seemed to be pretty good. If we go to battery health, you'll see I'm at 224 cycles at 95% capacity. Pretty normal from what I'm seeing from others. And yesterday on Beta 1, I had 2 hours and 3 minutes of screen active time, 3 hours and 38 minutes of screen idle time, and used just over 50% battery. Today, I have similar screen active time and I've used a lot less. So 2 hours and 28 minutes of screen active time and I'm down to 67%. Hopefully this improves over the next few days, and we'll talk about that in the weekend follow-up video. As far as if you should install iOS 18 Beta 2, well, I would probably install it if I was on Beta 1, but if you're wanting to try it out, I would wait for the public beta, which will typically be pretty soon, typically in July. That's what Apple said. So maybe next week, early July, with a Beta 2 re-release for developers. That's usually what they do. So maybe sometime next week, we'll see the public beta. As far as iOS 18 Beta 3, we're probably on a 2-week cycle here, so maybe not until the second week of July. Then we'll see it between Monday and Wednesday. iOS 17.6 Beta 2 I would also expect maybe on the second week of July as well. We don't really know the release time frame, but that seems to be about likely. And then of course the public release of iOS 17.6 probably sometime in late July, and iOS 18 releasing to the public sometime in mid-September. That's typically what Apple does. As far as benchmarks, well, let's go ahead and run those again. The first benchmarks were pretty terrible. Good for single core, terrible for multi-core. Let's see what they do now that it's been a little bit of time. Benchmarks completed, and again we have a pretty good single core score. It's 2,772. Multi-core was just 6,800. If we go back to the history, you'll see that it was a little bit higher with Beta 2, but much higher with earlier versions of iOS 17. So iOS 17.5.1, this could be due to processing in the background, and we'll check this again in the weekend follow-up and see if it's changed at all, improved, but so far the overall performance actually feels pretty good. So those benchmarks may just need to be updated based on using iOS 18 and the app needs an update, or maybe there's something else going on with it. But either way, it feels nice and fast, and it's cooled down even though it ran the benchmark, so pretty good overall. That's everything so far with iOS 18 Beta 2. I'm sure there's more features and changes, but we'll find those throughout the week, and I'll talk about those later in the week with different videos or the weekend follow-up. If you found anything else, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and also if you're running iOS 18, I'd love to hear how it's going for you. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.